Alright guys, here we are. We are going to be doing the drawing for activity 2.2. It's number 1. This is our 1-point perspective of our object over here. If you notice in the question, it says that we're doing the top left and front view of our object. So we need to make sure we're using this bottom one as reference. Alright, whenever we do a perspective sketch, remember we need to start with our horizon line. So we're going to start just with a line at the top, or wherever you're starting your drawing, just across. There's no specific size that you need this to be, especially when it comes to 1-point perspective. So since this is 1 point, we only have one single vanishing point, and that's going to be somewhere along our left-hand side over here, since we're doing our left, top, and front view. Okay, so we're going to put our vanishing point somewhere over here. Once we've done this, we want to see what the overall dimensions of our object are, since we will be creating a glass box that holds our entire object. So what that means, it's kind of like we took a big wooden block and we're carving away all the pieces we don't need. So we're going to start, this is 4 across, this is 3 tall. I would suggest doubling it over here so we have enough space. So we're going to do 6 tall and 8 across. So remember, these are trying to be in your construction lines. They'll be pretty light. I'm doing them a little darker so that you can see them on the camera. From here, once we have our front face of our glass box, we want to take each of these 3 corners and take them to your vanishing point. With this, it might be easiest if you do have a ruler to use. But they don't have to be perfect. You're just trying to do the best to keep a straight line so that we have our correct angles. But again, don't have to be perfect, just the best you can do. So something like this. Sometimes having smaller lines will let you get a little closer to the correct angle. So something like this. Once we have this, we can start to decide how wide or how deep, our box needs to be. If we notice for our drawing, it's 2 in depth. Alright, so we had our front was 4. We can take about half of our front. Sometimes I like to use my pencil. About here to here would be half. You can use that just as a rough guide to think about how wide your box needs to be. Though remember, a lot of perspective is estimation. It's about approximating your distances. So wherever you've decided, you're going to move straight up and down, and then wherever it meets that corner, we're going to go horizontal parallel to our grid line. So remember, anything in our height or our length is going to be parallel to the grids. Anything for depth is going to go directly to that vanishing point. Okay, we're not doing any of the corner to corner like our obliques, where it's the same angle for everything. We really want to make sure our depth is all going to this vanishing point. Alright, once we have our glass box like this, we're going to cut away the pieces we don't need. So to do so, we need to take a look at what touches each surface. So the front side we know is 3 over here by 2. So for this part of our front, we can count it. We had 6 then, since we doubled it, 6 by 4. Okay, and since we know that this is part of our object now, we can darken these with our object lines. So I'll try to make these extra dark to make sure you guys can see the difference, since my construction lines are a little darker as well. So you really just want there to be a difference between your construction and your object lines. Alright, now we need to see where it touches the front. We need to see where it touches the left-hand side. This left-hand side, if we see, it was 2 across and the left is only 1, so it's about halfway. So we're going to take a look across here, approximately halfway in between. We're just going to draw our line straight up and down, again parallel to those grid lines. We know it goes the entire height, so we don't need to cut anything off the height. And then we can darken these, since again now we know that this is part of our object. Right, just like that. So now we have our front, our left, and we need our top. So the top, it's the same width as the left-hand side, and when we're looking in our length this direction, it's 2 out of 4, so it's halfway. So if we look, we can measure from our front halfway here. So this was 8 total, so this is 4. From this point, we want to take it back to our vanishing point since it's our depth. Okay, so since it's our depth, we're going to go all the way back to our vanishing point. This one was not very straight. That's okay. There we go. Let's fix that. All right, so like this, we have our vanishing point all the way back there. So this cuts the top in half. Okay, now we know this was the same depth, so we can take the corner of our left-hand side, bring that 90 degrees, horizontal, parallel to our grid lines, just until it meets that new diagonal line we've just made. Right now we can darken these with our object lines. And now we have our front, our left, and our top. All right, at this point I'm going to lighten a couple of my construction lines since they were a little dark at the beginning so you could see them. So I'm not erasing them all the way. You do still want these on your paper. You really want to be able to show your process, and you might need to use them a little later on. So please make sure you don't fully erase them, but you can lighten them up if you need to have more contrast between your object and your construction lines. Okay, at this point, we need to connect the lines together, the surfaces that we've made. So we start with taking our front, and so we see that it goes back to meet the rest of the object. So these front corners, just like we did originally with the front face of our glass box, we're going to take these over to our vanishing point. Okay, so we're going to take these to our vanishing point, just like before. These are with our construction lines, again, so pretty light. Right, and these go all the way to our vanishing point. So now we have these 3 corners. Let me make that a little darker for you to see. A little better? A little better. Okay, so these 3 go all the way back to our vanishing point. And we can take a look over here. Now we know that this left-hand side comes straight across to meet with that front horizontal line. Okay, so we're going to take this one horizontal, parallel to our grid, just until it meets our new diagonal that we took from the front. So you can darken these. These are now part of our object up until that point, that corner. All right, based on this, we know it goes from that corner, goes straight up until it meets the next corner from our front face. So we go straight up, parallel to those grid lines, until it meets the next diagonal we made. Again, those diagonals are coming from our front face all the way back to our vanishing point. Right now, if we look, it goes, again, parallel to our front face, all the way until this top corner comes straight down. So we can take a look, making some little construction lines. This top corner comes down, this corner comes horizontal, parallel to those grid lines, just until they meet. And once you get about where those need to be, we can darken those into our object lines again. We can darken those construction lines. All right, last little piece, we need to close off the back of our object over here. We know it goes past, it's further back than this L shape right here. So we need to darken our diagonal from this corner, past this edge here, about to over here, and we turn it horizontal, parallel, or on a grid, and close it off that way. All right, our last step is our tonal shading. So our tonal shading, remember our side is the darkest, our front is the half shade, and our top stays blank. So our side, this is our left-hand side, is the darkest. Okay, just like these. Both of these sides you would see from the left-hand side. So we fill this in. Okay, then our front is the half shade. So this L shape, as well as this side right here. All right, and then remember our top always stays blank. We never shade their top side. And then we are done. All right, so again, this was activity 2.2, number 1.